Volodymyr Z, a Ukrainian diver, is detained in Poland at the request of the Germans. Not only at their request, but with their active participation. The Germans participated in the search of the apartment of the Ukrainian suspected of blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline. As far as the provisions of the Code of Criminal Procedure and the European Investigation Order are concerned, the provisions state that, of course, the requesting party, that is Germany, may request the participation of its representatives in these activities, but the host, in this case Poland, decides whether or not these services should assist in the activities, as was the case here. The defence also has doubts about the confiscation of equipment belonging to Volodymyr Z. The Germans secured and immediately removed from Poland diving equipment and construction equipment that the Ukrainian used in his paid work. Vladimir Putin is rubbing his hands with glee at the fact that, through the hands of Germany and ultimately Poland, a Ukrainian citizen accused of an act that will probably constitute an act of heroism in Ukraine is now in a Polish detention centre. The opposition is also concerned about the Polish authorities' compliance with other German demands. Among other things, the prosecutor's request to arrest Volodymyr Z. The prosecutor demanded 100 days in custody. The court agreed to 40. According to the regulations, the case should be concluded in 40 days in the first instance, so the court decided that there was no reason to apply pre-trial detention beyond this period. The 100 days requested by the prosecutor's office is the period in which the case should be concluded in 2 instances. Now, Germany is demanding the extradition of the Ukrainian. In Germany, he is to be tried for alleged complicity in blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline. He faces 15 years in prison. It is obvious that Poland's extradition to Germany of Ukrainian Volodymyr Z, who is alleged to have blown up the pipeline, is contrary to Poland's raison d'etat, because Poland's raison d'etat is to prevent Germany from getting closer to Russia. According to experts, it is in Poland's interest that Volodymyr Z not be handed over to Germany. There are serious concerns that Germany will immediately hand him over to the Russian Federation. Unfortunately, more and more facts point to this scenario. Among other things, the attack by Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski on Professor Andrzej Nowak. For what? For the fact that, as one of President Karol Nawrocki's closest associates, he wants to take part in a conference in Berlin entitled The Polish-German House, Bridge or Deception. It takes exceptional short-sightedness to legitimize German revisionists out of bitterness towards the European Union. Verily I say unto you, fear nationalist Germans more than pro-European ones. Professor Andrzej Nowak is an eminent historian and expert on Russia, including Soviet Russia, who was one of the first in Poland to talk about the reset with Russia implemented by Donald Tusk's first and second governments. However, such points of reference for the reset with Russia in 2008, at the beginning of 2008, after the aforementioned conference in Munich, just before Russia's aggression against Georgia, show, I would say, a shocking willingness to submit to Russia, which makes no secret of its aggressive intentions. This is an excerpt from the first episode of the series Reset. In it, Professor Nowak commented on the Foreign Ministry's submissiveness towards Russia, using the example of a letter sent by Sikorski to Moscow before one of Tusk's meetings with Putin. In the letter, the Polish Foreign Ministry recalls the times when Tsar Alexander ruled the Kingdom of Poland. The very suggestion of this kind of association testifies to the transmission, in a soft way one might say, of an attitude towards Russia of complete submissiveness, subordination, forgetting, not even independence, but forgetting the basic dignity of a separate state, because the Polish kingdom established in 1815 was, to a large extent, thanks to Tsar Alexander, merely a bridgehead for Russian influence. Perhaps this is the real reason why Sikorski reacted so strongly to Professor Nowak's declaration about his departure for a conference in Berlin. It is a pity that such a strong reaction was not forthcoming after Angela Merkel's words, which damaged Poland's reputation. The former German Chancellor considered our country to be partly responsible for the outbreak of war in Ukraine because we did not agree to talks with the criminal Putin. Some did not help us in this, primarily the Baltic authorities, but also Poland, because they believed that we would not develop a common policy on Russia. My opinion was that we had to work on a common policy. In any case, we did not manage to do so. Then I resigned from my position. Mrs. Merkel is one of the people who are truly to blame for this war in every sense of the word. Her policy towards Russia was simply scandalous, and unfortunately, she had her representatives here. Or perhaps I should be less polite and say she pushed them in Poland. However, Neither Merkel nor the representatives of the government in Warsaw mentioned that it was Poland, through the mouths of right-wing politicians, who warned against submissiveness towards Russia for years, and that Putin earned money for the war by selling his raw materials to Germany, also through Nord Stream and Nord Stream 2.
Od samego początku.
From the very beginning, regardless of who was in power in Poland, also in my role as President of the European Council, we explained and strongly opposed the construction of Nord Stream 2 from the outset. That is what Donald Tusk says today, but a year before Russia's aggression against Ukraine, he publicly called the rule of the German Christian Democratic Union of Germany, during which the Russian-German pipelines were built, a blessing, not only for Germany, but also for the whole of Europe. Apparently, however, we are not. According to Vladimir Zed's defense attorney, no Ukrainian citizen, under international and Polish law, should be prosecuted for destroying Russian property or assets that directly or indirectly finance a war in Ukraine. But what would Germany say then?